Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. Another week starts and more transfer stories as Harry Kane is back on the agenda for Manchester United, according to many sources this morning. UK-based Harry Kane back on the agenda for Manchester United. What's the truth behind that? Decision made about Sabitzer. What's the latest with Rasmus Højlund? We'll also be talking about Onana and how that deal came about. Some interesting stuff coming out with regards to that. Amrabat, Henderson and a lot more. Welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and welcome to another beautiful day on this planet we call Earth. Let's embrace it. Let's embrace it with some positive vibes, because apart from lower back pain, which is actually quite painful, everything's looking good, and it's another week closer to the start of the Premier League season, and another week with a couple of games for United to play. Real Madrid, obviously very exciting in the early hours of Thursday morning. But let's get into the latest breaking transfer news, and it's all about Harry Kane again. Various sources, most of them UK journalists, talking about this, and the crux of the matter is this: Harry Kane is up for sale by Spurs. I've got a video coming up on That's Football a little bit later. He's up for sale by Spurs. This is a decision that Spurs have taken. Obviously, they want to make some money instead of losing him for free. And therefore, there are a few journalists, Manchester Evening News, Guardian, Telegraph, a few outlets saying, does this spark Manchester United's interest? Some of them saying it does. Some of them saying it remains to be seen whether it does. Some of them even saying finding the £100 million won't be a problem. To which I say, told you so. There's a lot of I told you so going on in this transfer window. Remember, for most of the summer, it's been about financial fair play and we can't afford it. It's nonsense. The money is there. It's always been there. It's about what United can get. So what's going on with Harry Kane? Well, this is probably from about the best source you can get. Morning to the United Stand legends. Is it Rasmus week? Fingers crossed, says Ollie, who's been a member for 12 months. Love the content. Got engaged to my girlfriend yesterday. Buzzing. Congratulations. What a positive news story to start the week. So, with regards to Harry Kane, the situation is this, and there's not really any reason to swerve away from it. It's very clear. The United position on Harry Kane has been and will remain for this transfer window based around three factors. You can read what you like. You can join the speculation if you like. It might also be worth remembering it's in Spurs' interest to make out that United are interested or have a chance. Because if Spurs flirt with Manchester United and give them encouragement, they can push the price up with Bayern Munich, which is where they really want to sell him. But well, anyway, look, this is the situation with Manchester United. The bottom line is that Manchester United, Erik ten Hag, prioritised Harry Kane as their number one striker targets back in probably January. And it was reported widely. We discussed it. A lot of journalists said it. Harry Kane is the number one target for Manchester United this summer. And categorically, that is true. So, interest in Harry Kane is not speculative, it is true. He is the striker that Erik ten Hag wanted, and why wouldn't he? Probably the best number 9 in the Premier League in relation to overall game. Hojlund is the best striker, but Harry Kane is a better build-up striker, which is obviously important to United. So the interest is there. The second point is, Manchester United's stance right now is that there is no chance of Harry Kane coming to Manchester United. As of today, as of the last few weeks, there is no chance. Even if they had £100 million and they could give it to Spurs, there is no chance of that deal happening, and that's a big if anyway. Have they got £100 million to do it? And the reason for that is that Spurs have made it categorically clear they will not sell Harry Kane to a Premier League club. They won't do it. So, end of the deal. And United do not have the negotiating prowess to do a deal with Spurs when Spurs are reluctant and adamant that it won't happen. Effectively, the bottom line from Manchester United is that if Harry Kane was to sign for Manchester United this summer, two major things would have to happen. One, Spurs would have to change their resolute stance that they don't want to sell him to a Premier League club. And two, the Glazers would need to sell this club to Qatar very, very quickly to give United the financial power and negotiating power to go and get that deal done. And neither of those things are likely. Spurs are not going to back down and sell their best player to a rival. and Manchester United will still be owned by the Glazers at the end of this transfer window. So, yes, Manchester United retain interest in Harry Kane and would like to sign Harry Kane, but the facts are they're not going to enter that race because they know there's just two major reasons why they can't win it. So, you might want to get excited. There's reason to get excited. Erik ten Hag would love to buy Harry Kane. I think it would be separate to Rasmus Højlund as well. I think this would be Kane and Højlund, if I'm being honest, because the Højlund deal has been worked on since May. So, and at that time, United still thought they had a chance of Kane. So it doesn't impact on Højlund. It's not Højlund or Kane. But United ain't going to get back in this deal unless something miraculous happens. And the stance of a very good source when I spoke to them this morning was that no, nothing has changed. Kane won't happen because it actually makes sense, says David Watson. And what you've also got to remember as well, let me just read this from Joshua Bowwater, the legend of the chat. He says, we should be getting both, but saw a good debate about whether people would rather establish quality in Kane for 100 for potential and longevity in Højlund for roughly half the price. Thoughts? Well, we can do a poll on that, Joshua. It's a great point. Kane's age is a real concern for me. No resale value. And how do you build around an ageing striker? No doubt of his quality, but a younger striker is a must, says Ben. And Maguire left out all the away kit promo released this morning. A sign he's leaving, says Dan. I don't know about that. Maybe it's the best decision Harry Maguire's ever made, being left. Maybe Harry Maguire says, I'm not wearing that kit. Best decision making in 3.5 years, if true. I mean, I don't know whether Harry Maguire not being in the kit launch is because we're going to sell him, but maybe he doesn't want to be in it because the kit's crap. I don't know. Look, I mean, it might be a grower, that kit, but yeah, it's not. As I said on Twitter this morning, it's the sort of kit you do your best you can if your colours are dark green and white stripes. Why Adidas have come up with that kit concept, I just don't know. Just do a nice black away kit. I mean, it works. Just do it. I don't know why. Surely Adidas just want to sell kits. So yeah, I don't really get that one really. But let me just try and what's going on here? Why won't it do that? Oh, I'll do this poll in a minute. I've just messed it up. Got a super chat coming in from. Also from Horns, he says, hi Mark, I just ordered the new away kit. I know I'm going to be called crazy because it's not great, but I'm purely building collection. That's fine. A lot of people will buy the kit. I wouldn't worry about it. This transfer will drag on. Don't do it. I can imagine we will lose to Bayern and then we're in trouble. We need Højlund, says Klaus. Well, look, some people choose to believe you, some people don't. I've just told you what the I nearly said the official stance from United is. That'd be dangerous to say that, but I just told you what the stance is from a very good source. We're not in for Kane. We can't. We won't deal with the Spurs. Spurs won't deal with us, and owned by the Glazers. We wouldn't ever get that deal done anyway. So Kane or Højlund? I'm just putting in the poll now. Who would you prefer? Just prefer. Not about what's realistic. Who would you prefer? What I would also add about the Harry Kane thing, and I think it's really important here, is Spurs don't want to sell to Manchester United. I'll guarantee you now, Spurs will hint that they do want to sell to Manchester United, because when Spurs decide to sell, it's about best value. If I'm Spurs and I know Kane wants to go to Bayern and I know that's the only place I can sell him, I am flirting with PSG, flirting with Chelsea, and I'm flirting with Manchester United. I'm not selling to Man United or Chelsea, but I'm encouraging a bid. I've got no intention of selling it. It's like selling your house, right? And somebody you hate wants to buy your house. Do you say, F off, you're not looking round it? Or you say, come round, have a look, put a bid in? Because if they put a bid in better than the person you're selling it to, you tell them and then hopefully get a little bit more money. So I think suddenly we will get some encouragement that Spurs would sell to us, that they won't. It's just about driving the price up for Bayern Munich. So look, I have to say, as much as I'd have preferred Osimhen, that's off the table. Harry Kane at Manchester United would be fantastic. His age was a concern for me, but look, if you had Kane and Højlund, I think that would be perfect. Perfect. But there's talk of Harry Kane's wages being £30 million a year as well, which I just find incredible. I mean, £30 million a year, correct me if I'm wrong, you're talking what? What's £30 million a year? I mean, he's not even, he'd be barely on 10. at Spurs. So look, I don't know. I think it's a big red herring that we're all being drawn into because basically Spurs just want to get the price they can. Connor says, Mark, nice to potentially have a Galway connected man in Kane on the team, even a remote possibility. This is more a Friday night question, but who was the greatest Irish Red, John Giles or Roy Keane? Well, it's Roy Keane for me, Connor, because John Giles would be way. I'm not that old. I only remember him from commentating on TV. Anyway, 62% have gone with Højlund so far. What's the latest with Rasmus Højlund? This is a news show, by the way. Get your questions in, of course. But we've spoken about Harry Kane for long enough. So with regards to Rasmus Højlund, we did the video last night. A lot of UK press catching up with it this morning. Chris Wheeler in the Daily Mail saying that the Højlund bid is expected from Manchester United, and it's expected that there will be a response from Atalanta early this week. Of course, you have to acknowledge that a bid can get rejected, but an official bid from Manchester United normally means there's been discussions around, what would be required, and it normally means it'll get accepted. As I said last night, Rasmus Højlund wants to come to United. Manchester United are in the driving seat here, and I think PSG would. It would be a major shock if PSG somehow positioned themselves and won this because, United would have to drop the ball a lot. Hopefully we will get some movement on this very, very quickly. Of course, sometimes we need to remind ourselves what would the stages of this transfer be and where are we at. So traditionally you get personal terms agreed. Here we go. Official announcement from the club. That's how it normally works. So really, the next stage in this deal is, here we go, or deal done, whatever you want to call it. That's the next step, because personal terms are fine. Player wants to come. Once you've agreed a fee with Atalanta, it's here we go. Now, official announcement from the club could still be a week after that. We know it can take time, but that's where we're at with this deal. It's been worked on for so long around Højlund and his desire to come to United and United's desire to sign him. This is really just about agreeing the fee. We've been in this position with Mount. We've been in this position with Onana as well. So, look, how long's a piece of string? Depends how long you cut it. But realistically, you could get a here we go this afternoon. You could get a here we go next week. And it just depends on United. As I say, I just hope the fact that PSG are interested prompts United to move a little bit quicker than they probably would have done. I think and also with Mason Mount and Onana, there wasn't any competition by the time we got to negotiations. Everyone else had pulled out. So if PSG are there, it should help it happen a bit quicker. Mark Walsh says, I think getting Keane would mean we would have a chance of challenging for the league. Kane, I think you mean, says Mark. Look, you know what? I'm a big fan of wrestling from the 90s. WWF, Ultimate Warrior, The Undertaker, Bret the Hitman Hart, Shawn Michaels. I'll tell you what, it's a bit like the old wrestlers of the early 90s, isn't it? If Spurs said, do you want to get back in the ring and bid for Kane, I'd be like one of those old wrestlers. I'd be going, no chance, absolutely no chance. If you think I'm getting back in the ring to bid for Harry Kane, you must think I'm stupid. You'll throw some smoke in my eyes or something and hit me around the back with a chair. You cheats. I wouldn't trust them in a million years to get back in the ring with Spurs. I think Man United need to be clever here, and I think they will be clever. I think the whole smoke around Man United getting back in for Kane, Spurs putting him up for sale, they ain't putting him up for sale. They're trying to get the price up from Bayern Munich. They will not sell him to us. It's all a scam to try and utilise Manchester. It's the same as what happened with Gayton in Portugal. It's the same as what happened with Schneider. It's the same stuff we read every summer. United are interested. And so many times it's about that club getting more money from another club, or that player getting a better contract with the club that they're at, or that agent trying to spike interest in their player. Man United's name is being used here because they know we'd like Harry Kane. They don't want to sell to us, but they want to use us to get more money out of Bayern, which is where they do want to sell him. Hi Mark, just wanted to shout out my friend Javi, who passed away in the UK to cancer. Be at peace, Javi, says Andrew. Yeah, big shout out to Javi, very sad news there. Rest in peace, and support and love to friends and family. Samuel says, I'm so hyped, United is changing and Kirk has joined Bournemouth and Szoboszlai gave me one thing to not hate Liverpool, love from Hungary, says Samuel. There you go. Thank you very much. You know what? I don't want Liverpool to do well next season, but I think there has been some interesting signings into the Premier League. Obviously, a lot of people discussing players leaving the Premier League to go to Saudi Arabia, but Tonali at Newcastle, Szoboszlai at Liverpool certainly will be interesting to see how they do. But more exciting, of course, is what we've done. Interesting story coming out from The Athletic about Onana. When we get Højlund, who's our best backup? Mason, says Chip. Oh, come on. You started off so well. Mason Greenwood's not a backup for anyone. Not a Man United player, really, in relation to the squad at the moment, until he is. So, no. Onana, really interesting here, actually. Some people, I don't know, it's this whole trying to be proved right bullshit, isn't it? Which people are going to say, well, you do it about Højlund all the time, which I suppose is fair enough. But story coming out from The Athletic about how Manchester United ended up signing Onana. So interest in Onana was pre-Champions League final. I think I would acknowledge here that Ten Hag, and I say Ten Hag because it will be Ten Hag who masterminded this, to keep the Onana interest quiet like it was masterful by Ten Hag. Now, the story goes that we were in conversation with Inter around May time for Denzel Dumfries, and at that point Ten Hag mentioned Onana, and Inter was sort of like, there might be something that can be done there, let's see what happens after the Champions League final. So that's when United initially looked at Onana. There was talk about Mike Maignan from AC Milan as well. And the story goes that there was an acceptance that De Gea would do another year and a contract would be offered to De Gea. But after the FA Cup final, Ten Hag really lost patience and wanted to bring that forward. And that was when Ten Hag decided, let's start pushing the button and let's ramp up the interest in Onana and remove De Gea. So that's when it all sort of happened. But what you got to remember is that it's an interesting story and it obviously is true, but I don't know what the angle is in relation to the I told you so crew, because it's almost like, I told you we were looking at goalkeepers before, but it's not a secret that we were looking at goalkeepers. We've been scouting Costa all season. I have to say last season now. I don't know whether you're like me. I still keep calling this season next season and last season all season. But we were scouting Costa all last season. So we were probably scouting Onana all last season. We might not needed to scout Onana, actually, because Ten Hag knows everything about him. But we were definitely scouting goalkeepers last year. David Raya was scouted, but Costa was probably scouted more than anybody. And we were looking at goalkeepers all last season. Erik Ten Hag is not the sort of coach that goes, I think I might need a keeper. I might keep De Gea, but I might not. So we were scouting goalkeepers all last season. That's why it was a hot topic. That's why everyone was talking about changing the goalkeeper. I think there's some people in our fan base that think they were the ones that realised we needed a goalkeeper, and Erik Ten Hag saw it on Twitter. He didn't. This is why we were debating it so much last year. This is why I was saying, I personally think the budget should be used better elsewhere. I would keep David for another year. He's just kept so many clean sheets, etc. I mean, that was my stance, I'm not going to lie. But to think that Erik Ten Hag didn't and wasn't scouting goalkeepers is stupid. And I think I almost look at some of the comments this morning on social media and it's almost like, I told you we needed a goalkeeper, but we were scouting goalkeepers last year, 100%, especially Costa. So, look, the big decision was Ten Hag after the FA Cup final saying, let's do it. Because and I think Harry Kane, funnily enough, has a big impact. That's the thing I've always been told, take it or leave it. When Man United decided they weren't going for Kane, that opened up 50 million quid for Ten Hag to say, go and get Onana. If we'd got Kane, would we have still gone for Onana? We might have done, but obviously when you're not spending £100 million on one player, because Rasmus Højlund's going to cost us 50, you can see how we afforded Onana. Kane for 100 million, or Rasmus and Onana for 100 million. And I tell you what, when you look at it like that, I don't need to do a poll. If that's why United did what they did, because they couldn't get Kane, it's not about who would you prefer, Kane or Højlund. It's about who would you prefer, Højlund and Onana or Kane. And I think in that instance, I'd be stunned if 99% of us didn't vote for Højlund and Onana over Kane, because I would. And I don't think United did have the money to get Kane, Højlund, Onana and Mount. So, yeah, I think ultimately we did go into the summer looking at Kane, but how it's ended up, and look, we've got to see what happens. I've got a really interesting video coming up on Højlund this afternoon, actually, which I think will give you an insight into the player. But yeah, we were definitely looking for goalkeepers. Even I would acknowledge that last season. Just a thought, if you know Spurs are taking advantage of United, if I know Spurs are taking advantage of United, then obviously Bayern know they're using United, then why would they fall, says Anshman? Because the interesting thing about negotiations is you never quite know, who else is in the race. You've got to remember PSG are in the race as well. So let's see what happens with that. But we're not in it. Juan says, I want Rasmus because he's a young. Kane is proven, but for how long has he left? Good points. 56% would go with Højlund. 44% would go with Kane. Got to say, absolutely loving that this morning. Loving that, because I think there's pros and cons in relation to both. There really is. It's up-and-coming talent against pure, proven talent. That's what it is. 100%. Anyway, let's... a few bits to talk about. Want to talk about Sabitzer. So, decision made on Sabitzer. A lot of you have been talking about this for a while, and you're absolutely spot on. There has been a bit of curiosity and confusion, and still potential that Sabitzer could join Manchester United. United never really closed the door on Sabitzer. Ten Hag was very impressed with him. Obviously, the loan deal didn't quite go the way it should have gone because of injury. So what is the latest with Sabitzer? Well, Manchester United have finally closed the door on any potential deal for Sabitzer. This means that United will not be bringing Sabitzer back, which I think we can all acknowledge would be the right decision. He is going to join Dortmund. So Leipzig, Bayern, and then Dortmund for Sabitzer. United hadn't closed the door on it. I personally felt it would have been a mistake to go back there, but Ten Hag is an admirer of him, and certainly with Fred going, I think there was always an option that Sabitzer could come back at least on a loan again, but United have decided no, and Sabitzer, apparently, according to Fabrizio, is going to go to Borussia Dortmund. I think that this is a good idea. I was very excited when we brought Sabitzer into the club, and I was very excited when we were linked to Sabitzer when he was at Leipzig. I don't think the loan was a failure in the sense that he's a bad player. I think the loan was a failure in the sense that he picked up 2 or 3 injuries, and I looked at it and I was like, but where does he even play? Like, he didn't, clearly wasn't going to be able to do the Casemiro role, was never going to get the Bruno role, and the Eriksen role, we just never really saw him play it enough. So I think Sabitzer, you don't buy bench players. You don't buy bench players. I think that's a mentality every top club has to have. Just called my mental home. They are on the way to get 56% of you, says Robert McCormack. Yeah, 56% want Højlund, which Robert's struggling to deal with on this Monday morning. But yeah, I think I've said this before, and I'd be very surprised if Ten Hag doesn't agree with it, and most of you don't agree with it. You don't buy bench players. You buy first team players, and your first team players become bench players as they fight it out. So bringing Sabitzer in would be bringing in a bench player. Where does he start in that team? Like Mason Mount is a first teamer. He might end up on the bench, but he is a first teamer. Onana is obviously a first teamer. Rasmus Højlund, even at 20, you're buying him for the first team. There might be some integration and development, but you're buying him for the first team. Even Amrabat, a first team player. People will go, where? And I'll go, well, what about away? Away to Spurs, second game of the season. You're going to play Mount, Bruno and Casemiro, or you're going to play Amrabat, Casemiro and Bruno? You might want a little bit more in it. So you've got to buy first team players. And as I say, it doesn't necessarily mean they start, but they've got to be a first team consideration every game. In fact, that's what Man City have. I think Man United have got too many bench players. If I look at it, I don't really see Lindelof as a bench player, even though he is, because I think Lindelof is almost bordering on he should be starting, but obviously he won't with Varane and Martinez fit. But Dalot's a bench player, Malacia's a bench player, McTominay's definitely a bench player, Fred's definitely a bench player, Sancho's definitely a bench player. You know, we've got a lot of players that are bench players, and if you look at Man City, you can say, well, Mahrez was a bench player, but Mahrez is good enough to start, and that's what you need on your bench. You need players that really should start, but don't start because there's better players than them there, and that's what United are trying to build. So with Sabitzer, I like him, but I couldn't see where he fitted in, and I'm not really up for buying bench players. Marshy says, what about Osimhen? Has the news around him got any truth to it? The only news I know around Osimhen is that he is looking to sign a new contract at Napoli with a release clause of 100 million, which opens up the opportunity, if we get new ownership, for us to go for him maybe even January, but certainly next summer. I don't see him going next. I don't see Osimhen leaving anywhere this summer because Napoli's price on him is massive. King says, what's the news on Amrabat? There is a little bit of news on Amrabat. It came from Fabrizio this morning, basically saying that, talking about price. And I think that when Fabrizio is talking about the fee for Amrabat, it's very much open that he's there and he's available. He referenced Manchester United as well. The fee was somewhere between 30 and 40 million euros, which we pretty much know is about 25 to 30 million pounds. And I think that with regards to Amrabat, it's certainly, I mean, look, percentage-wise, I think there's probably a 60 to 70% chance that we sign Amrabat, but that can shift either way. I mean, we know that there's other clubs looking for midfielders like Liverpool. We also know that United need to offload some players to do the deal. So I think that Amrabat's certainly one to keep an eye on, but this week really is about what happens with Rasmus Højlund and what happens with outgoings. We expect Alanga to be announced by Forest imminently. We expect Forest to then follow up with Henderson, which is useful because obviously when you've negotiated with a club for one player, it's very easy to pick up negotiations for another player. So I think it's useful that we're doing 2 deals with Forest. Fred is still an uncertainty about what he's doing. Personally, I don't know the situation with Fred, but there's talk about personal problems, of which could be there could be a multitude, and we hope that obviously it's not personal problems in relation to any health or issues with him or his family, but those personal issues could also be decision about where you want to live your life for the next 2 years. Do you want to go to Saudi Arabia? Do you want to go to London? Do you want to go to Turkey? So I think with Fred, there isn't really any clarity on how quick that's going to happen. But I think he's almost making a decision about where he wants to go next with Fred. So I think that this next week really is watch what happens with Rasmus Højlund and how quickly it happens, and watch how quickly we move some players on, because it feels like United are waiting to sell some players before they move for Amrabat, but are aware that they've got to keep an eye on that. Would you want Amrabat, says Barry Johnson? Yes, I think he's a risk. I mean, I look at Højlund, and I think this is a great question, Barry, because, and I'd be interested to see what people's choices are. CGI says Saudi Arabia would be great for Fred. You just want the money, you mercenary. Yeah, so do I. SK said, I mean, God, we can't say that we don't just want the money when we all want Qatar, do we? SK says, morning all, still catching up. I hope it's not Kane or Højlund. I'd be happier if we get Højlund done, then see if we can get Kane later, says SK. Yeah, I mean, I think that's still very unlikely, but I'd be comfortable with that scenario. Let's get Højlund done, and if a miracle happens with Kane later in the window, a miracle happens later with Kane, the worst thing in the world would be we drop the Højlund deal to try and focus on the Kane deal where there's no chance of that. And that won't happen. But you know what? It's a great question from Barry about what the Amrabat deal means, because I think when you look at Onana, there's strong confidence that he'll do well. You look at Mason Mount, all right, I think that one's up for grabs, but I think Ten Hag's obsession with him means that he will do well. Rasmus Højlund, young striker, so many assets in his game that can be improved on. I think he's an exciting one. Amrabat, I must admit, mid-20s. I think Amrabat could go one of 2 ways. He could be a really good signing or just end up being a bit of a, okay signing, But again, I think he is a better option than McTominay and Fred, and ultimately those two players should be moved on. Whether they are both moved on this summer, they should be. And I think Amrabat comes in, and it's a Ten Hag signing instead of a player that's been here for years, played under Ollie and everyone else. So I think that Amrabat to me is the right deal to do. I think if we had a lot more money, we'd do a different deal. But in the circumstances, it's clearly a player that Ten Hag likes, and his qualities give us abilities that we don't have, in the sense that he's more than capable of playing defensive midfield than anybody else, and I think we need that cover. And with someone like Mainu coming through, he's not going to play week in week out at his age. So, I think an Amrabat coming in actually helps someone like Mainu, because it means he can play and learn without the pressure of having to be the backup to Casemiro, which I think might be a step too soon in his development. Just saw Harry Kane train with Tottenham in Singapore. Hope he will join United this summer, says Alan. You got no chance, Alan. And I would rather Højlund this summer and Osimhen next summer. Kane this summer would close the door for Osimhen, and he would be on his way to rivals, says Jeffrey. It's an interesting one. I don't look. Chances of us signing Kane or Osimhen this summer, lower than 10%. I'd say virtually no chance. Chances of us buying either player next summer, very good. Until Kane signs for Bayern, there's a good chance he signs for United next summer. Honestly, if Bayern don't sign Harry Kane this summer, they won't get him next summer. If he's a free next year, he won't go to the Bundesliga. He'll stay in the Premier League. So there is a chance that Kane could come next summer. There is a chance that Osimhen could come next summer. Who would I want? Osimhen. But I don't know who Ten Hag would prefer. He likes Osimhen and he likes Kane. Tennyson Clothing says, did you see the video of Avram laughing at the sale of the club chant? When you are soulless and are not emotionally attached, you laugh at things like that. I'm trying to think of a comparison to it, but if you're working in a job you don't really care about, you're just doing it for money, and there's a crowd outside saying, imagine you work for someone like, I don't know, your head of branding for some company you don't really give a shit about, but you earn really good money, and you look out your window and there's a group of protesters saying you're shit at your job, but you're not going to lose your job, you're earning good money, and that no one's going to sack you. Do you really care about those people outside? It's a big difference if you care and you think you might lose your job, but they don't care. They're not going to lose their job. They're not that bothered about the job. They're just bothered about the money. So people screaming and shouting Glazers out has never bothered them. So it's not going to bother them now. So smiling at it and laughing at it, it's just actually, you're right. I can see why people get frustrated by it, but I also don't understand why people get surprised by it. Avram Glazer's not going to start crying because people are shouting Glazers out. Like, they've had it for, nearly 2 decades. They don't care. It's emotionless because they're not emotionally attached to the topic. They're emotionally attached to making money out of something. It's like having a bank account that earns interest, isn't it? And then, walking down the street and someone saying, you're shit at managing your bank account, stop managing that bank account, and you're like, it makes me the interest I'm interested in. Stop. I'm not even interested in what you're shouting. We should be buying people with world-class potential, not just established 30-year-olds. That's why I like our transfers this summer, says Nex. Welcome to the Members Club, Ron. I think Amrabat is ideal in the sense that I don't think he'd expect to play every game, but provides a rotation option. I agree with that, James. Would Erik Ten Hag use Mainu in the same style as Garnacho last year with cameos, selling 2 midfielders, Amrabat to come in? That would fill Fred place, says Matthew. Yeah, I think with Mainu, that's the logical progression for him, is that he gradually feeds his way into the team and doesn't have the pressure of being thrown in. You've got to nurture talent, and we're fully aware of this in our history, but Ten Hag will be aware of that as well. HD Car Care says, why are we not signing a proven striker this summer? Can't afford it. can't afford it, basically. Osimhen is too expensive, and Harry Kane is not available to Manchester United. Spurs are looking to sell him outside of the Premier League. Good point as well about Harry Kane as well, just because we've been speaking about Kane quite a lot, and you sort of forget the reasoning why I would have gone for Osimhen over Harry Kane. I think this is just worth just dropping in there. Harry Kane's world class. He is a world-class striker, and I would welcome him at Manchester United. I don't think anybody wouldn't do that. But I can't sit here and say, look, Mason Mount's very welcome. I hope he's going to be a real legend of the club. Ten Hag's absolutely obsessed with him. There's no doubt about that. We all want Mason Mount to do well, but I still find it really odd when I see him playing for United because he's a Chelsea player. That's going to take time to get used to it. And it's interesting with Mount because I don't feel the affection to Mount as I do to Onana. And that's not Mount's fault. It's because he's a Chelsea lad. You know, the last few years, all we've seen is Mason Mount, Chelsea through and through, come through the youth setup, and Chelsea are a rival. So it takes time. It was the same with Van Persie from Arsenal. Doesn't mean it's not a good signing. Harry Kane's a Spurs player. I don't like giving rivals money, a lot of money. And I like the idea of Højlund because, well, one, he's a United fan, but two, he's got no connection with any of our rivals, and we can hopefully create our own Harry Kane. I wouldn't say no to Harry Kane. Of course I wouldn't, but he is a Spurs player. He's a Spurs legend. Spurs are a rival. I don't want them to be, but they are over the last 10 years. In fact, they've probably qualified for the Champions League as many times as we have. So, look, that's something that's personal to me as well. I don't really like buying players from rivals. I don't. I'd rather not. If he refuses to leave the UK, Joe Lois demands to sell, says Robert McCormack. Yeah, well, look, Robert, I can only repeat what I was told this morning from a very, 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 very good source. Man United are not back in the race for Harry Kane. He was a player that they wanted, but were told under no circumstances would they get him. United focused on other things and other targets, and that's what they're focused on at the moment. In a dream situation, they would still buy Harry Kane, but for that to happen, Spurs would have to say that they'd sell him to Man United, which is what they're adamant not to do. And United would need the negotiators and the money to do that deal, which is not the Glazers. It would have to be Qatar. So, you know, it's a big stretch to think that United get back into that race. Matthew James Whelan says, hooray, I'm having my first child to my beautiful wife in 4 weeks' time. Matthew, congratulations to you and your wife. And, well, congratulations for 4 weeks' time. Could be 2, could be 6, you know. Any updates on Ahmad, says Kenshi. Well, we spoke about Ahmad last night. Ahmad has put a tweet out himself saying that the injury is not as bad as he first feared. We don't have clarity on how long that injury will be, but obviously even a minor injury could be an injury that puts him out for, you know, a couple of weeks, which puts him out of pre-season. But hopefully, I'd love to see him back there. Some great news around a player that I think's got a great future at Manchester United as well. Dan Gore has signed a new contract with Manchester United. Obviously, we didn't get to see him play against Arsenal on Saturday night, but we did see him playing in Scotland, in Edinburgh, against Lyon last week. Lyon, not Leon, Lion. He signed the new contract with Manchester United. Look, Gore's really interesting. I was told about him a few years ago when he was like 15, 16, and they said he's the next Roy Keane. Well, you know, I've heard this before. There must have been 30 next George Bests in my lifetime in that youth setup, and, you know, 100 Rooneys and 100 Roy Keanes. But I like the look of Gore in relation to his skill set. Very comfortable on the ball, very tenacious, energetic. I think with Gore this season, please, the phone must be ringing off the hook from championship clubs. Get yourself in the championship, play 30, 40 games, and let's see where he is in a year's time, because he's an interesting profile player. With youth players, you've just got to be patient. You really do. I mean, look, some people think Hannibal's still going to make it at United. I don't think he is. I thought Chong was going to make it. He didn't. There's been so many players that look really talented in the youth setup and they don't make it. Look, Charlie Savage has just gone to Reading. Iqbal's not here anymore. So it's really difficult to be a first-team player for Manchester United as a youth player. But that doesn't mean that we don't give up. That doesn't mean that we don't keep an eye, and that doesn't mean that we don't encourage and hope. I think Gore's another one of those players that, hopefully will, but he's talented, and I think this season it's about he signed that contract, which is great. Get him on loan to the Championship, and let's see where we are in a year's time with him, because that's good news, him signing a contract there. Big shout out to Dan Gore, signed the new contract with Manchester United. I think he's 18 as well, isn't he? Just one thing I didn't mention from the article with, let me just read this super chat from Saul. He says, Saul Goodman says, do you reckon that Højlund, Amrabat, Onana and Mount are enough to challenge for at least second next season? That's a good question. Do you reckon that Højlund, Amrabat, Onana and Mount are enough to challenge for at least second next season? Well, I'll probably do that in a couple of weeks and give my prediction on where we're going to be. I mean, probably do it just before the Wolves game, because why would you do it before? I know people like to do their fancy Premier League team and predictions weeks before, but realistically, your Premier League predictions should be the night before, because you never know what transfers, injuries are going to happen. Man City will win the league, in my opinion, so second place is the limit of what we can do unless something miraculous happens. I still think Arsenal's preparation and squad is better than ours. The job for United is to fight for second place this year. Of course it is. So yeah, the short answer is yes. I think that has to be the aim for United. I think that would have been the aim for United at the end of last season, all the way through the summer and before the start of this season. I think the aim for United has to be Man City's biggest challenger. Now, some might think that means we can win the league. I don't think that. I think you can be second place and miles off the league. Mourinho and Ollie did a great job at that. So I think, yeah, that has to be the aim for United. I want us to make an impact in the Champions League, because we haven't done that for a long time. And I think we have to go for second place. Do I think it will happen? I'm sort of yo-yoing at the moment. Sometimes I look at it and go, I think there's some problems. Other times I look at it and think, well, if we improve in certain areas and certainly consistency, I think we can. So, look, last season I didn't think we'd get top four because I didn't think we had the squad to cover the amount of games that we had. Miraculously, we did. I don't know how we did it from Christmas to May, playing 3 games a week without a striker, really. So Ten Hag has this amazing coaching ability to succeed in obscure situations. So I would never write him off. Andy, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. Wellbeing says Adidas aren't serious. And Paxton says, no, I think we might finish 5th this season. But do you not feel that, I mean, look, we're sort of wandering into Premier League preview time, which I'm excited to do, but we're a few weeks away. Do you not feel that the race between 2nd and 6th is so unpredictable? Like Arsenal, Manchester United, Liverpool, Newcastle, maybe Chelsea, Brighton, Aston Villa. I wouldn't throw Spurs in there if I'm being honest. There's just so much. I think, yeah, you could go for 2nd, but you could find yourself in 5th. Like you say, it's one of those years where it's really difficult to predict. Newcastle and Aston Villa will be playing European football. Chelsea won't. Liverpool will be playing Thursday night football that they might not take seriously. Who prioritises what? I think we're in for a really interesting season. But as I say, I think Man City are just going to be miles and miles ahead of everybody else. Talking of which, the really interesting there was a bit of a profile piece on Onana. I think it was in The Athletic, saying that he's determined to be the best goalkeeper in the world, and Man United gives him the platform for that. And it even mentions vengeance against Man City for beating him in the Champions League final. So it just gives you a glimpse into the character of the guy. And I said last week that I think Onana comes into this league as one of the top 3 goalkeepers in the league. Now, people laughed at that, but that's based on his stature and what he wants to be and what his status in the game is. Obviously, he's got to go and prove that now. And I find it really encouraging when you've got a player that, does have vengeance and belief and desire to be the best in the league, because there's no doubt he's box office, like the Bladenator said, but there's no doubt that Alisson is the best goalkeeper in the league, and that's the aim you want. You want somebody that can do that, and I love David De Gea, and he will always be a legend, but aim for the stars, says Jack Whelan. David De Gea was never going to be considered as a competitor to Alisson, no matter how many good saves he made, because people were always going to focus in on the on the inability to play out from the back and be a modern goalkeeper. Well, in Onana, we do have that, and I think hopefully he can do really well at Manchester United. Somebody just said there's some updates coming in. I'm just having a quick check here. You do get a lot of stuff. Here we go. Man United are rolling. So this is from Telegraph, James Ducker. Man United are unwilling to pay more than 60 million for Rasmus Højlund. United are still in talks with Atalanta, but have a firm ceiling in mind. Erik ten Hag has other targets in addition to Højlund, and United are adamant he is not their only option. Look, no problem with that from James Ducker. Very well timed piece, but I'm going to be completely respectful here and say that's a club brief. I'm going to be completely honest here and say that United talking about alternative targets is bullshit. We did this with Mason Mount and Caicedo. We did it with Onana, and we're going to do it with Rasmus Højlund. Of course we are. We've been working on this deal for a very long time. Rasmus Højlund is almost desperate to sign for Manchester United. Erik ten Hag is obsessed with this player. This is just your normal negotiating tactic that happens all the time. And it's transfer deals for dummies. We spoke about this with Mason Mount. Oh, we're thinking about Caicedo. We were never in for Caicedo. So, and as for the £60 million limit, I mean, £60 million again. I don't get where these figures come from, because £60 million ceiling is 70 million euros. I'm sure you'll get people writing about this today who have the similar sort of sources that we have around this. This 60 million, 70 million pounds thing is just baffling. It's never been there. I mean, some people have even spoken about 80 million pounds, 60 million pound ceiling. Atalanta wants 60 million euros, and that could include add-ons. The figures don't even make any sense. So look, maybe United's ceiling is 60 million euros, but 60 million pounds, that's a mistype somewhere along the lines, because that's not what's been discussed. 60 million pounds is huge. You're right, Stuart. 60 million pounds for Højlund is nearly 70 million euros. And as I keep saying, not enough people are talking about add-ons with this deal. He's a bloody striker and he's 20 years of age. Do you really think United are going to pay Atalanta 70 million euros for a striker? Of course it's going to have add-ons in it. The easiest deal to do is a striker with add-ons, because you can say when they hit this amount of goals, when you hit that amount of goals. My personal feeling is, and I've been consistent with this for nearly 2 months now, is somewhere between 40 and 50 million pounds with add-ons. So that could be, 55 million euros plus add-ons. It could be 50 million euros plus add-ons. That's where I think we'll be. And unfortunately, there just seems to be a real huge chasm of lost information between what the UK press have been reporting about Italian deals this summer and what the Italian press and sources have been reporting this summer. So I'll stick with what I got. Anyway, so I'm not worried about that. I'm relaxed. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. We'll be back again at 2 o'clock. We've got Fabrizio Romano this afternoon, but he's on That's Football. He alternates each week. So it was United stand last week, I think. So it's That's Football this afternoon, but we'll certainly be able to ask about Højlund on that. Make sure you smash a like on the video and subscribe. Legends as ever. Got an interesting video coming up on Højlund actually a little bit later as well. Take care, everyone. Go and buy the new United kit if you like it. I'm just going to say that I won't be buying it, and I won't be buying it for Seb. He said no. But he does like the red one. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Thanks everyone for watching. I think I've done all the super chats. Someone just said you missed one. I've done the congratulations one. I can't see any others. Welcome to the members club, Andy.